Hey there, hey family and friends and loved ones and fools and dreamers and lovable goobers, lovable goobers that we are. Lovable tricksters that fool ourselves and wonder why. So I shared some dreams last night, and that was super helpful for me actually to kind of review some of those dreams and then share them and speak about them. And yeah, even if no one else watched it, it was super helpful and eye opening and yeah, really good for me to be able to share and express with vulnerability and yeah, authenticity and just yeah, showing up as I am and as I'll be and yeah, all those things. So yeah, I've been working with that and last night I saw some things about them after sharing where there was like little common themes that I've been working with and through like certain conflicts that I've had this year and like really throughout my life that I've tried to smooth over or fix or make better but like not acknowledge fully, really, like in an effort to be pleasing or to just make it feel okay. And so, yeah, I got to really dig in deep and look at some of those things and see where my accountability is and how I participated in creating and recycling certain things and patterns and dynamics and pain and dis-ease. And so I wanted to share a few things today, now that I have some more clarity about them and yeah, see into me more clearly, my intimacy. And so, yeah, it was pretty awesome to see a lot of these things and, yeah, to work with them and to play with them and to um, allow them to show me what I needed to see. And so I could take my accountability and I could allow them to be, or like get some resolution. Um, yeah, and integrate, yeah, some of those things. For creative possibilities and just a willingness to cooperate and acknowledge what's been coming up and coming through these dreams and in my um, relationships, um, where it felt like there's been lack of intimacy, um, lack of trust, lack of transparency, those kinds of things. So really, it was up to me to create that intimacy or to invite that intimacy or allow that intimacy and seeing into me. And it does help so much to have that mirror, that reflection of the other, and like looking at what we have together or what we've created together or what we're playing out together. And so those things, yeah, have really helped me see, or kind of, yeah, been a good reflection for me so that I could understand what I needed and what I needed to see and what I was willing to see about me and for me, through all of these things, through my being and my dreaming and my sleeping and my awakening. So it's all part of the same thing. It's a process and it's continuity. So here's a dream review of some of the dreams I've shared in the last couple weeks, and also like just from maybe the 4 or 5 that I shared yesterday. So I noticed some things, and yeah, we'll just see where it goes and where it leads. So looking at dreams and sharing them today on a video 12:15, some themes in alchemy opportunities. Here we go. Fear, guilt, blame, shame, trauma bonding, emotional toxicity, betrayal, wounding, feelings of persecution, discomfort, anger, grief, pain, condemnation, betrayal of trust, old resentments, rivalry, projections, secrets, secrecy, confrontation, transparency, caregiving, avoidance strategies and survival strategies, dynamics of the family, generational and cultural, and avoiding accountability, energy leaks and energy drains, avoiding owning the parts we've played or co-created, recycled, seeing, perceiving, penetrating, true sight, the exclusion, inclusion, and worries about being seen or exposed, protection, armor, cloaking, boundaries, addressing and expressing, or calling out bullshit and or shadow dumping, blowouts or restraint, absorption, detachment, observation, hiding, overthinking, being with feelings, insight and hindsight, reflecting, reacting, listening, responding, trusting, exchanging, no strings, engaging, taking things personally, competing, comparing, selling ourselves short, lies, myths, stories, but there's one right way. Judgments, differentiation, discrimination, and restraint. Allowing, listening, letting go, leaving the old behind, cutting our losses, cutting what we no longer need away. Understanding, responsibility, and acknowledgement. What's mine and what's yours and what's mine. Respecting and honoring energy, surrendering, trusting, reclaiming, retrieving, removing myself from the situation, or taking my own distance and separation. Traveling, awakening, dreaming, feeling, sleeping, waiting. Gifts, opportunities, lessons, experiences, gatherings, and redirecting. Resources, fun, enjoyment, nourishment, forgiving, authenticity, acting, pretending, engaging and playing. Fooling and conning ourselves, giving our power away, or reclaiming our power and taking accountability. And so, yeah, those are some huge good things and themes for me to see. And I looked at the last dream that I had yesterday for a little bit to write a little more about it, of what I could see about it. And what I wrote down was something that struck me was, the part in the dream where I had on these clownish pants and I couldn't really get around very well because they were pants that just didn't fit me anymore, or didn't fit well, and I was still wearing them. And so it was like a hindrance to me moving freely because of old expectations, or just the fear of the unknown, or staying in my comfort zone of what I know, or the monster that I know. Yeah, so that was a little bit interesting to see. And so, I was forgetting things, and so I would have to go all the way back to my room, my motel room, and gather what I needed, and then come back down to the shop. And it was just, funny how it was just like a loop. I'd go back and forth, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And it's funny, but something that struck me was the purchases versus debt. Like, really, is this junk, or is it true value? Is it what I really need? And wearing clown pants that I've outgrown makes it hard to get around and navigate through changes and different levels of growth. And I had impatience with myself and others and my external circumstances. There was passive-aggressive unconscious behavior, but there was also the choice for patience and observation and asking for what I needed. There was some kind of, manipulation going on and busyness, and what is the point of going nowhere? Is there something there for me or here for me? So, and also the shadow side of the rebel, acting out in certain ways. And so I wrote, what am I avoiding? The temporary discomfort to leave my comfort zone, or the familiar or the known, the monster that I know. So those were funny things to see and to look into. And this morning I had a dream that I wrote down, and it was just so perfect. how it really shows me a lot of things about like my false ideals, my false perceptions, my false beliefs about how things need to be or how they should be or how I should be or how life should be, how the other should be, so that I can be pleased or that I can be pleasing and we can be pleased, because it's not about that. Like, really, like, if we're holding on to old resentments or judgments about, yeah, how things need to be in order to be what we want them to be, then we're just blocking ourselves, and that's, yeah. That's where some of my resistance was coming from. But I needed to see it in this whole new way, in this new light, and through these dreams that had so many gifts and potent messages for me. So I wrote, this dream work is super potent, fun, and rewarding. Thank you, love, dreams, messages, guides, and feelings. Because, yeah, that's what I've been appreciating lately, is the depth of my feelings and honoring my feelings and the messages that they have for me, and what they're trying to tell me in a lot of ways, that I wasn't very comfortable with feeling those feelings, and I wouldn't allow myself to be with those feelings in an effort like to just cover them up, smother them, or distract myself with busyness and like comforting things that really actually didn't serve me, and like trying to be pleasing to temporarily feel that comfort, but really feeling dis-ease about things, and yeah, just keep sweeping it under the rug again or covering it up again whenever it would try and come up and through and show me. It was just like, nope, press it back down again, depressed, repressed, oppressed, all of that. And like then sometimes in the passive aggressive ways, it would be expressed in unhealthy or destructive ways, and or just, yeah, ways that I guess sometimes it doesn't always have to be graceful, but certain things that kept the pattern going, and it didn't resolve any of those things or those conflicts or those patterns that weren't working. So that's interesting. And I have a lot more that goes into that after this little dream here. So there's a friend holding a circle at her place, and she's getting ready, preparing for guests and family, getting home and food and space, nourishment, hospitality, and this, yeah, space ready for sharing. She takes the time to help me with my hair. She's helping me refresh a long rainbow hairdo that I had in the summertime, and the back of my head mostly, since that's the hardest part for me to get to or reach. Yeah, it's interesting too, where it's my maybe reflecting a blind spot, because it's the back of my head, the back top of my head, where we can't really see unless we have a mirror, you know, or someone to help us see those things. So that's the hardest part for me to get to or reach. And the dye is a little more green than I really want it to be in certain places after she's done helping me, and the back of my crown doesn't really get touched up in the ways that I wanted it to, because it was kind of pulled into a braid at the top, and there were some places where the dye couldn't penetrate the folds at the top and the base of my head, the back view. As I take out the braid, I see that there is color missing where I want it to be, so I take the time to correct it. So where I perceive that there's lack or it's not how I want it to be. So I put some dye in where I would like it to be, but the dye is getting all muddied up and there's a bit too much green, and I'm a bit flustered with how it's turning out, and I'm trying to fix it. But it seems like it's not just working out the more that I try to tweak it. And it's like I'm stuck. I'm unable to move forward with rinsing it out. And I'm really worried about making a mess with this dye and trying to prevent getting it all over the bathroom and certain things, but it's pretty messy and it's taking me longer as I try to clean up after myself. Like in the dream, I was, yeah, it was just kind of getting certain places. So then I would just stop and clean it, and then I would get it somewhere else, and then I would clean it because I just didn't want the mess. Like, it was just like an obsession almost, like with keeping it clean and keeping it pristine and keeping it perfect, and yeah, those false ways. So as I'm trying to prevent the mess, I'm just making more of a mess of things, and it's getting pretty messy, and it's taking me longer as I try so hard. It's still getting all over my hands and certain things around me. I'm trying to clean it up. I smear it on more things. LOL. Part of me wants to surrender it and just get in the shower and rinse and be done with it for now. Leave it be. And another part of me wants to get it right, or how I like. And the circle is starting, and they've already gathered out back in the yard. So there's another back relationship there. So I don't want to miss it, but I'm still kind of stuck in limbo in between this transition, it seems. So I start moving stuff out of the way, like there's this mini fridge in the tub that I need to move out of the way before I can shower. And there's also this fancy cheese that I don't want to ruin or to get dye on because it was for everyone to enjoy. But I'm just doing my best to get in the shower so I can complete this task and be ready to join the circle. I guess not everything is what we want or how we want it to be. Then I see a character from a movie or a show, actually. It looks like Jack from Lost, except he's got long, overgrown hair and a few days' growth of a beard on his face. He's wearing worn clothes that used to be nice, but they're disheveled and rumpled, like he doesn't really give two fucks anymore about getting it right, or pleasing others or being pleased. He's letting go. Letting go or trashing the perfectionist's image and throwing caution to the wind. He's riding on a skateboard almost like he's surfing the waves. It's pretty cool, really, in this mesmerizing, fluid way. And then I wake up. So, yeah, that's kind of fun little story from my psyche to me. from me. So, yeah, obviously the perfectionist in that character in the movie, he was very, hard on himself, and he expected himself to perform perfectly in a lot of ways. But in that show, he didn't even see his own, darkness or his own shadow side sometimes because of that image of perfection, and that had been inherited as well. So it's kind of interesting little correspondence or relationship there. So what I wrote about this dream was, I'm so afraid to make messes or mistakes, but I'm wasting so much energy trying so hard to please and be pleasing, or clinging to the one way I think it should be for it to be enough, or pleasing for me, pleasing for others, worried about how things seem or appear to be, and then muddying things up, losing clarity or sight of the important things. In transition, stuck in limbo, moving forward slowly in my own way. Okay, let it go and let it be. Leave it for now. Be fluid and free. It's really all okay. Surf the waves and enjoy what's here. Be here now and allow it to be. Whatever and all it gets to be. Some obstacles are being moved. Be patient with myself and allow the creative process to unfold, and use the momentum available. Let go of perfect and keeping it all clean and pristine. Just let me be. Let me be. Let it be. And so, I've been working with that too. It's like letting go, letting it be all it gets to be, and all it is, and all it shall be, and all it's been, and all it will be. But sometimes, on certain levels, that's hard. Or it feels difficult because there's resistance to that in certain ways, but it's just something that we get to realize in our own ways, in and through our own ways. And so, there's a lot of things that I realized about the dream, the one potent dream that was personal, and it was a little bit hard, or not really embarrassing to share, but there was some fear of exposure there about secrecy, and about the feelings that I had about certain things in the dynamics that I've had with my sister and with other friends that are like sisters to me. Um, and I just, yeah, I wanted to look into that a little bit because I feel like I'm pretty honest, and I feel like I am like I don't need to keep a lot of secrets, but there were secrets that I was keeping from myself, for myself, yeah. And it wasn't in a like an intentional uh, it wasn't an intentional choice really, like to protect me or, yeah, to guard me or to armor me, but I realized in certain ways that that's what it was. And the secrets, like, I even kept from myself, because I wouldn't allow myself to feel what I was feeling, and so I didn't even know how I felt or what was mine and what wasn't, because I didn't want to feel them and I wanted to avoid them because it wasn't comfortable, and didn't know what to do with them anyways. Yeah, really. So yeah, those are some good things to realize, like where a lot of these conflicts stem from that I was having and that were coming up for me. So this morning, just a little bit ago, I wrote, I didn't always speak up for myself when I needed to in an attempt to smooth things over or make it comfortable and all right or as pleasing as could be for the other and maybe myself. I didn't acknowledge how I was feeling, and I didn't or wasn't able to ask for what I really needed or set clear boundaries because I didn't know how to do that without letting the other down or letting myself down because of what I believed I needed to be or what I thought they needed from me. And yeah, the wires were crossed there. I didn't know that I had a right to my own thoughts, my own space and feelings, my self expressions, and my energy needs. I was always trying so hard to please and be pleasing. It exhausted me and it drained my energy. I was hiding how I felt, even from me, as the secrets in my armoring. Hiding myself and to protect hidden parts of me. This manifested as disease, addiction, and distortion, passive aggressive behavior and resentments, expectations and false images, ideals, and perceptions of perfection, of what things should be, how I should be, how the other should be, how life should be, to be pleasing, to care for me, or how the other was supposed to show up and care for me. This is where I abandoned myself in an effort to resolve these conflicts, but really, I wasn't addressing them. And I abandoned myself through this caregiving, this shadow caregiver. What I learned to take care of the other first, or to put my needs away, or to hide my own needs from me, like what I really needed for me, in order to be in relationship, in order to belong, in order to fit in. And this doesn't fit for me anymore. It doesn't feel good, and it's hard to keep it going. It's too much energy. So I'm ready to let it go and understand and acknowledge it. So yeah, that's kind of huge. A lot of huge realizations that I needed to see there, and I got to see, and I was willing to see. So I'm grateful for looking into that and seeing into that and seeing into me, because that's what I need for me, is to realize and to see and to acknowledge how I'm really feeling and what I really need. So, and to ask for what I need, and to be clear and to set my boundaries, and to honor them, and also honor the other, but know that I'm not responsible for the other's feelings, that they are responsible for their feelings and their own needs. Yes, we can help support each other, and we all need each other, and we're all, in a sense, like dependent and interdependent, but it's been dysfunctional. We've been playing out dysfunctional patterns through, our relationships with each other. So, yeah, yay for that acknowledgement. So, what can we do with that? So, being true to ourselves and seeing what's not working for us, and being true to our feelings and our energy needs, and honoring those we love and those we're in relationship with through honoring ourselves and what we need and how we're willing to show up and be together and cooperate through our relationships, our new relationships that we're building and cultivating and forming and bringing into being. So it's not always comfortable to change or to let go of old things and to stretch our comfort zones and face our fears and our insecurities and what we perceived as lacking or not enough or too much. But yeah, there's good potency in that, in all of that, through all of that. So the next thing that I wrote down too, because I had some questions, and where am I in resistance to what is, like to what is right now? Like obviously it's okay for us not to like things and for us not to agree with things and for us to choose another way and to distance and separate ourselves for differentiation and sorting things out. Sometimes we do need that space, and I have been claiming that space for me instead of kind of putting energy into my old habits, my old routines, my old ways of being, where I would pretty much respond on demand to certain people in my relationships, but then when it came around to me needing them to show up for me, they weren't really there for me when I needed them, or they weren't there in the ways that I believed that I needed them to be or that I wanted them to be. And yeah, it just didn't seem like there was a reciprocation. Where I expected certain things, they just weren't available for me, and that made me feel pretty resentful. Because I showed up for them like with everything that I had, and then when it was my turn and I needed something, and I rarely asked for anything. So that was like the martyr in me, like feeling like I asked for so little, and then when I ask for this little thing, it's too much for you. Like, what is that about? And so yeah, creating that, or being accountable for my part in that. It's just like, okay, yeah, I see where it stems from, and it's not like, it was sometimes the passive aggressiveness was a way, to just like blame the other and just be the martyr and feel like a miser, like, fine, I don't want to give you anything then, and that's okay, like, because that was like a way to protect myself, but I was being like a miser to myself by caregiving through the shadow caregiving of others. And and then it came back to me, like, where I'm a miser for myself, and so they were miserly with me too. So, and I didn't ask really for what I needed, so now I'm going to ask, and they have the right and the ability to say no, or they can't, they're unwilling to do whatever I'm asking, and that's fine too. But at least I can ask, and I can be open to receiving what I need, and I can be clear within me about what I really need, and offer and extend and receive that for me. And also, like, if I'm not clear about what the other needs, maybe I get to ask them too, and to be more clear with me. So there's more clarity, and there's more understanding, and it can be more fluid and reciprocal, and the exchange, a true exchange, true connection can be honored without strings, without like the need to feel that lack or that resentment, whatever's been perceived in those ways through those old ways of being. So good realizations to see. And where have I been resisting the gifts that are available for me to receive right now? Because some things aren't comfortable, and so we kind of overlook them as, that's not a gift, or that's not an opportunity, that's a problem, or that's something that I don't like, and so I'm going to reject that, you know. But like, yeah, what if all of these things have value and something to give and offer to us we're being presented with, and we get, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to honor our own needs and to honor our relationships and to see where we're showing up or where we're not showing up, and where we've abandoned ourselves or where we've abandoned others, like, that we've committed, like, we have an agreement with, or we've made agreements with, or um, we're not honoring our word or our commitment or our agreements. But like, sometimes we need to renegotiate and remake those agreements as well. And sometimes there's a lot of assumptions about, yeah, how long certain caregiving should continue before, like, change, something needs to change, or something, yeah, just falls away because it's not working anymore and it doesn't fit well anymore, and it's a hindrance to moving forward. So a lot of it is, yeah, of our own making, and it's what we believe about it, and it's, you know, like, kind of goes into what we can see about it. But sometimes we need a new vantage point to see, and that's where discrimination and discernment comes in, and also looking at judgments, like observing judgments and noticing when we're judging, condemning, or blaming others, ourselves, or external circumstances for what we don't like or what is, or yeah, all of that. So, where have I been blocking joy in my life, true joy in my life, and what is the payoff there, and why or where have I been keeping myself down or at war? What wants to be acknowledged, known, released, or allowed to be, to show me all I need to see around these things and themes and feelings? Yes. Because feelings are such a great guide. But yeah, our feelings can trick us sometimes. We trick ourselves all the time. And so it's like funny trickster coyote medicine, fooling ourselves, conning ourselves, being so wily that we trick ourselves, and we can't see really how we've done that sometimes until we do. So it's kind of funny how it all lines and rhymes. So making messes, and I shared something about that 2 days ago when I was with my niece. We're paint pouring and stuff, and just remembering, yeah, the mess is part of the process. Let's allow the mess, embrace the mess, allow the mess to be part of the creative process, and then we do something with it when we're done, or yeah, we cut our losses, or yeah, but we do, like, we can clean it up, like, and make the space for something new to grow. And that's what I've been working on too, is cleaning it up. Cleaning up all this garbage, and recycling, and what I don't need any longer, to regenerate new ways and this new life and these new ways of being and being in relationship. New ways of being in relationship through being true to me, and that's honoring the whole and my integrity. So there's a couple books that I picked up today, and they were so cool, and it was just what I needed to, like, to see. And it's just, wow, how everything just comes through when we allow it to. And that's like the magic of being in the flow and being fluid and just letting go. So just take a moment. Yeah, I was just like, which book? Because there's so many cool things that line up and have messages and continuity here. And here's I Had It All the Time by Alan Cohen. I don't know what this is because I haven't seen it yet. I was flipping open to another page that I had bookmarked, but we'll read this one first. It says, Seeking and Claiming. Harville Hendrix' masterful book, Getting the Love You Want, has become a popular manual for many people seeking greater depth and reward in their relationships. I believe that the first step to getting the love you want is to appreciate the love you have. How perfect is that? The universe always gives you more of what you are focusing on. Jesus taught, "To him that hath, more shall be given. To him that hath not, more shall be taken away." So I guess it's where our focus is. If our focus is on lack, then the universe keeps giving us what we perceive as lack. But if we're acknowledging like the gifts that are being given and grateful for them and humble to receive them, then we keep getting more like of these, things. And abundance and prosperity. Like if we acknowledge what's already here and we focus on that and we appreciate that, then it increases the value. And so more is given. That's awesome. More is given and more is received. Wow. So at first, this axiom would appear to define a cruel God who rewards the rich and punishes the poor. To the contrary, Jesus was elucidating a paramountly important metaphysical principle, the very key to the manifestation of abundance. Jesus was teaching the importance of focusing on what we have or want rather than on what we lack or do not want. Huh? That was so cool. Yep. Page 179 from I Had It All the Time. That was too cool, yes. And so that's what I've, totally been looking at as well lately, where I know that, and I expressed this to a friend last week, or in the last 2 weeks or so, where what we perceive as lack is an invitation to show up for ourselves and to see like what we can give, offer, and receive for ourselves. It's an invitation to show up for ourselves and to offer whatever that is that we need like to ourselves, and to also see where we can show up more fully for ourselves and to see where we've abandoned ourselves. And so really there is no lack. It's all here to regenerate and reclaim. So that's freaking awesome. So I was talking about judgment and discernment and like discrimination, and I flipped open to this page earlier today and just kind of looking at those things like judgment, discernment, differentiation, detachment, like taking my own distance, claiming my own space so I can sort out like certain things and receive more clarity, more insight into what I really need, into what's not working for me, and to what I want, into what I'm willing to experience, into how I'm willing to show up for myself and others, and what parts like I get to play in this little show and little play. How am I playing and how am I showing up, and what's my part that I get to play and to be accountable for, and all of that in and through all my ways. So, judgment and discernment. Many on the spiritual path have difficulty distinguishing between judgment and discernment. In our attempts to avoid judgment, we have gotten ourselves into painful situations because we have not exercised discernment. God told Adam and Eve not to judge. He did not tell them not to discern. The difference between discernment and judgment is the same as that between innocence and naivety. One blesses us as our natural faculty, the other fails to utilize our innate wisdom. Judgment is the shroud that obscures true vision. Thoughts of lack, victimization, and separation smudge the lens through which we view life. We see, as the Apostle Paul described, through a glass darkly. We miss the joy of living because we are not acknowledging the good before us. Discernment is the ability to choose wisely on the basis of intuitive wisdom. If I went along with every proposal offered me, I would be sorry indeed. I have been invited to participate in unethical projects as well as activities that are quite legitimate but do not belong to me to do. I would only be hurting myself as well as others if I said yes to something that is out of integrity or not in accord with my purpose. If someone is headed over a cliff in their car, you do not assist them by jumping into the car with them. Or perhaps they are not going over a cliff, but they are simply driving north while you are going south. You serve best by declaring, "This is my right place or direction, and I must be true to it." We do not need to make the other person wrong for going in their direction, but neither must we invalidate ourselves for walking the path to which we are guided. One way to know whether you are exercising judgment or discernment is to observe the kind and amount of emotion accompanying your action. Judgment sets up a disturbance in the emotional body. Anger, conflict, and distress muddy the situation at hand. And I thought, there's the muddying again. Muddying it all up. Sometimes these energies are not obvious. If there is a tinge of upset, however, be sure that fear is calling the shots behind the scenes. There is the sense that the other person is wrong and they must be corrected, punished, or escaped. Actions proceeding from judgment leave you feeling ill at ease and unresolved. There is a lingering sense of victimization, bitterness, or resentment. You do not feel whole, nor do you see the other person as whole. You are haunted by a sense of incompletion. The incompletion, however, is within you. You have chosen a guide other than peace, and sooner or later you must go back to the point at which you stepped into separation and make a different choice before you can move on with integrity. Discernment, on the other hand, proceeds from peace. Centered in the strength of your heart's resolve, you move clearly and calmly, trusting that all is well. You proceed from action rather than reaction. As you are inspired to serve, the universe lines up to support you. You can say no without ire or apology, for you realize that as you are true to your course, grace enfolds you and everyone involved. When judging, you attack the person rather than the action. When discerning, you may not approve of another's action, but you respect and hold compassion for the person behind the act. It's like, what is that? Love the sinner, but not the sin, or something like that. It's kind of funny. It relates in a way. When judging, you attack the person rather than the action. When discerning, you may not approve of another's action, but you respect and hold compassion for the person behind the act. Dr. Eric Allen Baugh, author of The Wake Up Calls, uses the motto, "Tough on issues, soft on people." Acting with discernment leaves you with a sense of peace. Having heeded your inner voice, your heart is free. All judgment must eventually give way to discernment. No matter how much separation or strife has come between you and another, it must eventually be resolved and healed. Neither you nor the universe will rest until you see and act on the truth behind the appearances. Love will have its way. So, how cool is that? And then the next one that I flipped to was a better view of the sky. What seems to be the worst thing that could happen may actually be the best thing. A Gallup poll found that 87% of those interviewed felt that the most difficult events of their lives turned out to be among their most helpful experiences, and now they appreciate that the events had occurred. A Course in Miracles echoes that what we perceive to be triumphs are often setbacks, while apparent disasters may be gifts in disguise. A Zen master noted, "Now that my house is burned down, I have a much better view of the sky." When we get our feared experiences behind us, we can enjoy what the fears were blocking us from seeing. When I took a whitewater rafting trip in Bali, I dreaded the possibility of falling out of the boat into the rapids. As the instructor gave his preparatory lesson, I silently prayed that I stay safe in the boat. To my chagrin, the inner response I heard was, "Just have fun." Less than 1 minute into the trip, our raft got caught up against a wall of rocks on the side of the river and overturned. As calmly as possible, I allowed myself to float down the river, where I was soon picked up by another raft. After I was returned to my boat, I enjoyed the rest of the trip far more than I would have if I had been worrying about capsizing. The worst had already happened, and it was not as bad as I feared. Innovate. Conflict is not our natural state. Our true nature is peace. The purpose of a sense of conflict is to get your attention so you will change something you are doing that is hurting you. You may have to let go of a self-defeating position that you are holding or become more assertive. In either case, the conflict is asking you to be more true to who you really are or ask for what you really want. When you accept trouble as a way of life or remain in pain with a sense of sacrificial resolution, you do yourself the greatest disservice possible, for you deny your right to live in joy. Right to life lobby groups have attracted much attention. Perhaps we must develop within ourselves an internal right to light lobby. But before you can exercise a right, you must be aware that you deserve it. If you accept darkness as a condition of life, you will not reach for the light. It is only when you are sick and tired of being sick and tired that you say, there must be a better way. Then the universe will answer the question you have asked and show you the way you have requested. Conflict is a call to innovate. If you are involved in a conflict internally or externally, there is an answer you have not yet seen. The tension you experience is a call to look at the situation from another angle or do something differently. We must not run away from conflicts when they arise, for they are doors to a new dimension of creativity. Your desire for peace is the voice of God speaking to you through your heart. The conflict is supposed to go away. The crucial factor is how we make it go away, or let it fall away. We can deny conflict, run away from it, or increase the force we are using until our side wins. But winning is not the same as resolution. We can cream our opponent, but that does not mean we have solved the conflict. Sooner or later, there will be another opponent. At some point, the use of force will fail. So, forcing ourselves to keep going with something that's not working any longer, not serving us any longer. Yeah, that there's so much energy in that, and it's not going to be able to sustain itself forever. Yeah. So the presence of conflict calls not for greater force, but for broader consciousness. If something you are doing is not working, doing more of it usually will not work any better. True resolution asks us not to act stronger, but to think bigger, not to fight harder, but to work smarter, to keep innovating until we find a solution in which everyone wins. Master key. The answer is always at a higher level than the problem. Carl Jung recognized that conflict exists strictly as an opportunity to raise our consciousness. If we do not wake up as a result of pain, we will only act out the same scenario in a more intense form. Most pharmaceutical medications do not make the problem go away, they simply mask the symptoms. Unless we have a change of consciousness, the symptoms will probably reappear. The symptoms are not our enemy, but our friend. They are calling our attention by saying, look deeper and discover what you need to change to live happier, or to live in joy. When nature hits a set of limits, it innovates. Millions of years ago, there was no oxygen in the atmosphere of the Earth, and living things on the planet functioned without oxygen. When green plants showed up in the course of evolution, a great quantity of oxygen was introduced into the atmosphere. Amazing as it may sound, oxygen started out as a poison. Many living things were not able to process it, and they died in its presence. Some life forms, however, were able to adapt through mutation, and that was the beginning of gills and lungs, which are now standard fare for breathing creatures on the planet. While our rudimentary biological forerunners could not imagine a world with oxygen, now we cannot imagine a world without it. We innovated, and that has made all the difference. We are all familiar with the expression survival of the fittest. Usually we think of the fittest as the biggest and the strongest. Look again at the word fit, and you will see an altogether more practical meaning. The fittest are those who are the best at fitting in. Sometimes that means big and strong, but more often it means the most adaptable, flexible, and versatile. Water would seem weak when compared to a formidable rock, but send water over a boulder for a long enough time, and the water will wear away the boulder. It has an entirely different kind of power than the rock, fluidity, and so the water endures while the rock does not. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that just goes into the book that I picked up the very last day when I just, just looking and wasn't even really expecting anything out of it. Just kind of got a nudge to pick it up, and it was just really pleasantly surprised that there's just some continuity and my answer that I needed. That kind of helps confirm and affirm this stream coming in for me and through me. For me, yeah. And it was very, very interesting and cool. This is fluidity. Yeah. I'll just read this part first. Observance of the soul can be deceptively simple. You take back what has been disowned. You work with what is rather than what you wish were there. In his poem Notes Toward a Supreme Fiction, the poet Wallace Stevens wrote, "Perhaps the truth depends on a walk around a lake." Therapy sometimes emphasizes change so strongly that people often neglect their own natures and are tantalized by images of some ideal normality and health that may always be out of reach. In reply to Papini, Stevens puts the matter more broadly in lines that James Hillman has taken as a motto for his psychology. The way through the world is more difficult to find than the way beyond it. Renaissance philosophers often said that it is the soul that makes us human. We can turn that idea round and note that it is when we are most human that we have greatest access to the soul. And yet modern psychology, perhaps because it links to medicine, is often seen as a way of being saved from the very messes that most deeply mark human life as human. We want to sidestep negative moods and emotions, bad life choices, and unhealthy habits. But if our purpose is first to observe the soul as it is, then we may have to discard the salvational wish and find deeper respect for what is actually there. By trying to avoid human mistakes and failures, we move beyond the reach of the soul. Sometimes, of course, it can be difficult to honor the soul's dramatic ways of expressing itself. An intelligent and talented young woman once came to me with the complaint that she was having trouble with food. She was embarrassed to bring up this symptom that had been at the center of her life for 3 years. She would eat almost nothing for a few days, and then she would gorge and throw up. The cycle was completely out of her control, and it seemed that it would never end. How do we observe these rights of the soul that are painful and even life-threatening? Does it make sense to give a place to horrible symptoms and hopeless compulsions? Is there any necessity in these extreme states that are beyond all rational control? When I hear a story like this and see a person so distressed, I have to examine carefully my own capacity for observance. Am I repulsed? Do I feel a savior figure rising up in me who will do anything to save this woman from her torment? Or can I understand that even these extraordinary symptoms are the myths, rituals, and poetry of a life? The basic intention in any caring, physical or psychological, is to alleviate suffering. But in relation to the symptom itself, observance means first of all listening and looking carefully at what is being revealed in the suffering. An intent to heal can get in the way of seeing. By doing less, more is accomplished. Observance is homeopathic in its workings rather than allopathic in the paradoxical way that it befriends a problem rather than making an enemy of it. A Taoist tone colors this care without heroics. The Tao Te Ching says, chapter 64, "He brings men back to what they have lost. He helps the 10,000 things find their own nature, but refrains from action." This is a perfect description of one who cares for the soul. It's not easy to observe closely, to take the time, and to make the subtle moves that allow the soul to reveal itself further. You have to rely on every bit of learning, every scrap of sense, and all kinds of reading in order to bring intelligence and imagination to the work. Yet at the same time, this action through non-action has to be simple, flexible, and receptive. Intelligence and education bring you to the edge where your mind and its purposes are empty. Many religious rites begin with washing of the hands or a sprinkling of water to symbolize the cleansing of intention and the washing away of thoughts and purposes. In our soul work, we could use rites like these, anything that would cleanse our minds of their well-intentioned heroism. This one, I had opened it. This is Care of the Soul by Thomas More. And I opened it to chapter 1, honoring the symptoms as a voice of the soul. Honoring symptoms as a voice of the soul. And so I just want to read this little paragraph here, and then I have some closing thoughts. Care of the soul is a fundamentally different way of regarding daily life and the quest for happiness. The emphasis may not be on problems at all. One person might care for the soul by buying or renting a good piece of land, another by selecting an appropriate school or program of study, another by painting his house or his bedroom. Care of the soul is a continuous process that concerns itself not so much with fixing a central flaw as with attending to the small details of everyday life as well as to the major decisions and changes. Care of the soul may not focus on the personality or on relationships at all, and therefore it is not psychological in the usual sense. Tending the things around us and becoming sensitive to the importance of home, daily schedule, and maybe even the clothes we wear are ways of caring for the soul. When Marcio Ficino wrote his self-help book, The Book of Life, 500 years ago, he placed an emphasis on carefully choosing colors, spices, oils, places to walk, countries to visit, all very concrete decisions of everyday life that day by day either support or disturb the soul. We think of the psyche, if we think about it at all, as a cousin to the brain and therefore something essentially internal. But ancient psychologists taught that our own souls are inseparable from the world soul, and that both are found in all the many things that make up nature and culture. So the first point to make about care of the soul is that it is not primarily a method of problem solving. Its goal is not to make life problem free, but to give ordinary life the depth and value that come with soulfulness. In a way, it is much more of a challenge than psychotherapy because it has to do with cultivating a richly expressive and meaningful life at home and in society. It is also a challenge because it requires imagination from each of us. In therapy, we lay our problems at the feet of a professional who is supposedly trained to solve them for us. In care of the soul, we ourselves have both the task and the pleasure of organizing and shaping our lives for the good of the soul. Getting to know the soul. Let us begin by looking at this phrase I have been using, care of the soul. The word care implies a way of responding to expressions of the soul that is not heroic and muscular. Care is what a nurse does, and nurse happens to be one of the early meanings of the Greek word therapeia, or therapy. We'll see that the care of the soul is in many ways a return to early notions of what therapy is. Cura, the Latin word used originally in care of the soul, means several things: attention, devotion, husbandry, adorning the body, healing, managing, being anxious for, and worshiping the gods. It might be a good idea to keep all these meanings in mind as we try to see as concretely as possible how we might make the shift from psychotherapy as we know it today to care of the soul. Soul is not a thing, but a quality or a dimension of experiencing life and ourselves. It has to do with depth, value, relatedness, heart, and personal substance. I do not use the word here as an object of religious belief or as something to do with immorality. Immortality, yes. I do not use the word here as an object of religious belief or as something to do with immortality. When we say that someone or something has soul, we know what we mean, but it is difficult to specify exactly what the meaning is. Care of the soul begins with observance of how the soul manifests itself and how it operates. We can't care for the soul unless we are familiar with its ways. Observance is a word from ritual and religion. It means to watch out for, but also to keep and honor, as in the observance of a holiday. The serve in observance originally referred to tending sheep. Observing the soul, we keep an eye on its sheep, on whatever is wandering and grazing, the latest addiction, a striking dream, or a troubling mood. The definition of caring for the soul is minimalist. It has to do with modest care and not miraculous cure. But my cautious definition has practical implications for the way we deal with ourselves and one another. For example, if I see my responsibility to myself, to a friend, or to a patient in therapy as observing and respecting what the soul presents, I won't try to take things away in the name of health. It's remarkable how often people think they will be better off without the thing that bothers them. I need to get rid of this tendency of mine, a person will say. Help me get rid of these feelings of inferiority and my smoking and my bad marriage. If as a therapist I did as I was told, I'd be taking things away from people all day long. But I don't try to eradicate problems. I try not to imagine my role to be that